Hey, deserving listeners, sister wives, let's check it out, like Dr. Steve Brule.
We made it work because of the kids.
Okay.
I don't know if we would have chosen to work things out for any other reason necessarily.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know.
Okay, so Christine and Robyn are sitting down to talk, and Christine starts off, in the edit anyway, revealing that prior to Robyn entering the family, that she doesn't believe that, well, let's see what she says again to make sure I got it right.
You know, someday we might live in one home. We did the right thing, right? I just want to know.
Okay, what did Janelle and Meri talk about most of the time? It was because of the kids, right?
For the kids.
We made
yeah.
it work because of the kids.
Yeah.
We made it work because of the kids. That
get
is
tired
what
of-
it was. We made it work because of the kids.
Okay.
I don't know if we would have chosen to work things out for any other reason necessarily.
I mean, she's wording it tentatively. She's like, I don't know if we would have chosen to work things out. And I think, I wonder if they're saying they felt railroaded into polygamy or they were tricked. You know, the culture or the statements or the way that it was being sold to them either by Kody or the other sister wives or by their culture or something. Or they were just ignorant and young, because they all were very young when they entered the family, when they got married. And at any rate, Christine is saying that the cooperation and the sisterhood of the family was not by choice. It was by necessity, because you had to make it work for the kids. You had to sacrifice what you really wanted for the kids. And it could be either just a function of clashing personalities, or it could be a function of the very institution of polygamy. Maybe it's a combination of all the above or other things. Anyway, so that's what Christine is saying. And by the way, to catch you up, so I watched and reacted to the first episode this season, season 15, and I think this is just before the pandemic, or late 2019, early 2020, in which Janelle had everyone meet at that restaurant, and they really revealed a lot. Then in the next episode, I'm just looking at my notes here, Kody forced the sister wives to take a road trip with him, and they wanted to take separate cars, particularly Christine, and there was a lot of conflict. There always seems to be some conflict whenever they go on some road trip as a team together. There's also a lot more, at least in the edit, bickering between Kody and Christine, which doesn't bode well for their marriage. Mariah and Audrey reveal that they want to move to Arizona or to the area, because they're in Chicago right now.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know.
It's confusing to me because I'm like, okay, did I just not see what was there in front of my face? Did I fall in love with a culture of a family that really wasn't real?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the sister wives didn't even know or want to admit that to themselves what was going on when Robyn was being courted. And also, even if they were aware of that disconnect, it's unlikely that anyone from the outside would witness it or notice it, because they were, in Lehigh anyway, seemingly from the outside, even on the reality TV show, they seemed to be loving it and working together and happy, and everything was going well.
So I think what we're getting is more organic, and it's more of a choice.
Oh.
I think it's more of a choice because when you came in the family, you stood up for yourself so much. And I was like,
really?
What the holy... Yes. I didn't understand what that was like. I had no...
That's interesting. That was my observation. I can never know what it's like to be them. I never know what's really happening because I'm just watching an edited reality TV show. But that was my observation. I might have said something like that compared to the other sister wives, Robyn was much more confrontational, even though at the same time it seemed like Robyn and Kody had at least a connection, if not a deeper connection or a more robust connection than he had with the other sister wives. Robyn just would say things spontaneously. She seemed to stand on her own 2 feet and would facilitate. She would tell Kody, like I remember when there was it was a few seasons back. I think it had to do with Mariah coming out as gay, right? And Robyn took it upon herself to facilitate a conversation between her and Kody and Meri. And Robyn was the one, or was it that, or was it the catfishing? I can't remember. I just remember that Robyn was really organizing and, you know, telling Kody what to do, and really the adult in the room. And the others, you could argue, were adults too, I suppose, but it was just a sign of agency and assertiveness and maturity and care, you know, because she didn't have to do that. She could be like, I don't know, it's your conflict. So it did seem like Robyn was more confrontational and more willing to just, in the moment, you know, she wouldn't wait. There always seems to be a fair amount of hesitancy from the other sister wives. Christine is more likely to be vocal. It's really interesting to hear Christine say this, you know, because I think we can all agree that Christine very much is more likely to voice her complaints than Meri or Janelle, right? Like, by far. So it's interesting for Christine to say, when you enter... So then it makes you wonder if all of the assertiveness or the complaining or the agency that Christine has shown over the last 15 seasons, if it was very small or very primordial in the first few seasons and really blossomed because of the example that Robyn gave. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And, you know, they all deserve to be able to voice whatever they want to voice, right?
No idea.
No way. Like it was it safe? I'm like freaking out here.
It was so good.
Was it harsh? Was it hard?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
No, you did great. There were so many conversations that you would have with Kody, and I was like, what? She gets a choice? She isn't just told she has to do it? What does that mean? You mean she's fighting about Christmas? We can do that? What?
Yeah, Pandora's box. You know, once you open it up, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. And then, at least for Christine, she's like, wait, so I can start... And I wonder if polygamy, which wouldn't be hard to imagine, that polygamy in terms of the traditional man at the top, women underneath model, the institution of that fundamentalist Mormon practice, really depends on everyone potentially not... You know, I've talked about this before, that in the, I don't know if we would call it a cult, but high control-ish groups of, you know, of religious people or other kinds of high control groups. You know, I particularly learned this when I was doing the deep dive on the Duggars, and the organization that they were a part of, what's it called again? It's like IMTB or something. I think that's a Myers-Briggs thing. Anyway, and they would talk once they had left that, you know, it's an evangelical group of people. They would say that once they left, that they had realized that they were born into the cult and were socialized from a young age to absolutely not question the religion, but also to not question anything. So it stripped them of the ability to even begin to question the cult. And so it's possible that Christine and others, maybe Christine less so, but to some degree, might have even been socialized from birth to not question anything, let alone the religion, right? Because a religion, a high control group, would benefit its longevity and its control over its members, not only by eliminating questioning the religion, but to eliminate questioning anything. Because if the members don't question anything, then you don't have to worry about them questioning the religion, because they don't question anything, and you can shape anything you want to. You could shape their marriage, the way they dress, the way they think. And so Robyn wasn't raised in that, or at the very least had emerged out of that, out of defiance from her first marriage, or something. I don't know. And for Christine, she's like, wait, that's interesting. Wait, you can do that? It's okay to do that? And it coincides with a lot of things. When Robyn entered the family, it coincides with them all separating into different homes, which would further that freedom of that space to think more independently. It also coincided with them leaving Utah and away from the church. They were still a part of the religion, but and they haven't gone into specifics on this, but I don't think they were going to the physical church anymore and weren't a part of the community of the AUB, I believe, the Brethren. I can't remember the exact meaning of their acronym. Acronym? Is it acronym? Anyway. Interesting. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So when it comes to dating, people sometimes ask me about what sort of red flags and green flags they should watch out for. But the problem is that just knowing these flags, if that's all it took, then dating would be a breeze, right? And we all know that it's not a breeze. As a therapist, I have discovered that in order to help clients with dating, we need to go way beyond these flags. We have to talk about their attachment, their schemas, their relational traumas. And with these sort of things, it requires a personalized exploration that you can really only get in therapy. Well, one place you can find a therapist is at BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. They have over 30,000 therapists with a wide range of specialties. So discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
And then Robyn came in the family and she started being like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my whole entire life. But she had magical conversations with Kody where he would come back and say, I think that we need to still have Christmas and things like that. And she was totally heard. And it blew my mind.
Okay, so we're hearing a specific example of that. Yeah, okay, interesting.
So that there are no regrets,
If it's going to save, keep our family healthy and safe, then we can do it. I love my family so much, I'll stay away from them. That's kind of how I feel.
I spent some time with our family doctor, not in person. She even made the comment that our ICU was full of cases here in Flagstaff.
Okay, so COVID has begun, and I am reminded of that time. And it feels like a lifetime ago and like a dream. And watching this reminds me of it was so specific and so scary and so weird and so hard. And it was right at the beginning. And so they're on a Zoom call because they are in I'm getting the impression that it's that very first couple weeks, maybe even the first week, I don't know. To catch you up, not a lot has happened that's worth talking about, but if I were to say, I would say that Christine said in one of the episodes that in the beginning of the marriages, she felt pushed aside and that she had to sacrifice more than the others did. She felt that Janelle and Meri had pushed her aside, had sort of treated her like the little sister and like a servant in a way. That's the way Christine, she wasn't using those words, but that's the way it sounded, whether or not that's accurate or not. And Janelle chimed in and completely disagreed with what Christine was saying. Janelle completely disagrees with this, and Meri thinks Christine's complaints don't make sense. So Janelle and Janelle and Meri were both saying, "What are you talking about? You were not pushed aside. That doesn't make any sense." Christine said she will never live in one big house. She's been saying that for a while, but she really definitively said it. And then Robyn validated Christine and was not necessarily agreeing with Christine, but was the only one that was like, hey, I get it, or and it kind of looks like Christine is looking for negative things, not in a bad way, but in the way that people will do when they're done with a relationship. I've seen this before, both professionally and personally, that when someone turns that corner, and it doesn't mean that it's not salvageable, but when divorce or breaking up is probable, that threshold has been crossed, the individual who has crossed that threshold, almost everything about their partner bothers them. I once had a client who told me that they didn't like the way that their partner breathed. It's like, I can't stand the way they breathe, the way it sounds. It just says something. And the way that their partner breathed wasn't particular. It was just the fact that it was coming from their face. You just, even if you're not necessarily in conflict, you don't necessarily hate your current partner. It's just this tension. You just want to be free. You want to be done. You just want to not have to deal with them anymore. And a lot of things get negative. It kind of looks like Christine is in that space, which is it's gonna be hard to pull out of that nosedive. The thing I've been wondering is if they'll just agree to be essentially separated, but still in a polygamous marriage. I don't know if their religion. I once had a couple who were in a high control religious group. Some might say a cult. It wasn't this religion, but it was and is described that way by people. And they were done. They came to me essentially in desperation because they really did not want to be together and really did not like each other. And they had gone to the elders in their high control religious group and had tried for years to make things work. And they were asking the church to divorce. And the church was like, no, you can't. That's not an option in this group. And out of desperation, the church elders referred the couple to me as a secular outside therapist, because normally they wouldn't do that. They would all, they would provide services in-house, right? And by the time they got to me, I mean, I'll get couples sometimes when they're done and they either don't know it or they don't want to admit it or something, but they come to me and they have both basically decided to divorce 5-10 years prior, and there's not much anyone, let alone I, can do from the outside to salvage the situation. And so sometimes, I'll see that. And that is one of the first things that I try to assess, because that's important for me to know. So sometimes I'll run into that, but it's a whole other thing when the couple has been forced together way longer than a couple would have stayed together. I mean, one of the members just hated the other person just with a passion. And so when I worked with them, I would bring up eventually I was like, so I'm not hearing any effort or motivation or desire to work things out, particularly from you, one of the members. So, there's always the option of breaking up or separating or something. And they were like, no, we can't do that. Our religion doesn't let us, and we don't want to. And that's just not going to happen. I'm like, okay. So I don't know if we're going to run into that. And so what we did was eventually, after months, just decided to figure out a way to make it work so that they didn't run into each other very often and didn't aggravate each other. And they had kids that were still living at home, where they were a little older. Anyway, so I'm wondering if that's going to happen. But anyway, so just looking at my notes here, there was a lot of planning for Mariah's wedding to Audrey. Then COVID began. There's shutdowns. There's been, I think this might be the second Zoom call that we've witnessed. They've already talked about how to be safe. It sounds like they're going to talk again about this. He is rotating from home to home, but there's worry that he's going to be the super spreader among the group. And if you just remember what was going on in those first weeks, I guess everyone had a different experience, but I'll tell you what my experience was after looking at the science and reading the reports and hearing the stories, it was absolutely terrifying. I mean, in those early days, those early weeks, we didn't know how it was transmitted. We just knew that people were dying, and apparently where the virus, at least seemingly, was generating from in China, in a region of China, that the virus had progressed in the community to such a degree that there were entire warehouses that were full of patients that were on the brink of dying, and that they were just like, they were just lining up the dead bodies, and Seattle was one of the first places that it showed up. It's hard to know exactly all the vectors of the virus coming to the States, but it's possible that, and I don't know if they've established this, but at least a theory, given epidemiology, that it was from a Seattleite who had traveled to Wuhan, China, and had contracted COVID and had come back to Seattle and had initially started spreading it. Anyway, so in Seattle, we were absolutely terrified, and it's one thing to contemplate death. It's another thing to contemplate death in the way it was being described. I mean, just drowning in your own phlegm, and without any ability to see your loved ones, without any ability even to see the physicians and the nurses, because they didn't know if they were going to. So it was just terrifying. We didn't know how it was contracted. We had zero vaccine, and we had zero hope for a vaccine coming anytime soon. And it was just, and just all the crazy stuff that was happening, all the run on the toilet paper, and people going out in public and, with full body condoms on. And, I think today people might even laugh at those people, but I think that is denying what was happening back then. It was just terrifying, and also terrifying to think about your loved ones potentially dying, your kids. I mean, this was something that didn't just kill elderly people. It was killing if I remember right, in the beginning, it was seemingly more likely to kill kids and elderly people, and people in the middle were they still could die, but it was just think about your kids and just how hard it is to keep your kids away from other kids. I mean, it's well understood that when your kids go to school, that particularly younger kids are putting hands on everything, they're putting their hands in their mouth. It's just like inevitable that it's just, what are you going to do? And to think, and then I don't know, just your apocalypse. I remember there was viable thoughts of, is this the end of our civilization? Because it was going all over the world, or are we going to descend into some sort of lawless, apocalyptic landscape where desperate people take desperate actions, and there isn't enough law enforcement that can. Yeah, it was. Maybe that's going a little far, but so watching this and all of them are very, very concerned, and I don't know if that'll sustain over time, but anyway, so that's all happening, and then I wrote in my notes. This was a few episodes ago, maybe 4 episodes ago. Robyn seemed the most worried about COVID, and is the most resistant to mixing the households, but they all are very concerned. Kody, like I said, is concerned about being the spreader between the homes. There's also, I think, kids that have some special needs or have vulnerabilities, so there's that concern. The sister wives don't agree on exactly what to do, but they seem to be willing to play ball. Janelle's kids, and so that's another thing, is that they have different kids at different ages. Some of the kids have moved out and don't even live in the state, right? But some of the kids are young and are easily controllable. If you tell your 5-year-old that they're not going to go to school and they're not going to hang out with their friends, then the 5-year-old is just kind of screwed. But Janelle's kids are older, and I think might even be young adults. At the very least, they're older, high school, and they have jobs, and I think and of course they have lives, they have friends. And I remember those early days as well, that the way the news was being taught, people were saying that kids are vulnerable, and of course everyone's vulnerable, but 20-somethings, 30-somethings that are in good health were the least likely to die from it. And a lot of people were experiencing COVID without any symptoms or with pretty minimal symptoms, or, with like a flu, which isn't the end of the world for people. So I wonder if Janelle's kids are kind of in that space, which really complicates things, meaning that Janelle can't dictate if, them isolating, if they're just like, why? What's the point? Anyway, but the rest of the kids, Mary's kid is in Chicago, Mariah, and it sounds like Christine's kids that are still living at home are young enough to be compliant or told what to do, and Robyn's kids as well, but Janelle's not so much. Anyway, the sister wives were seemingly vying for Kody to stay with them, because normally they would be on a schedule, but at least in the past, I don't know if anymore, but they are concerned that Kody isn't going to come to their house. So they were all kind of vying for that. And Robyn expressed sadness that they weren't together. I mean, they weren't particularly close to begin with, but now they're really, separated. And Robyn is the only one that expressed sadness about that. I don't even think Kody is necessarily caring. But I wrote in my notes that they had good negotiation among the five of them, considering the situation, because it was a really difficult, multifactorial situation. Then there are a few other episodes that I won't, go into detail. Then in the last episode, there was a vacation-y kind of thing where Kody and Meri, maybe for their anniversary, I'm not sure, they went on a little outing, a picnic, and Meri was trying to flirt in her way, trying to say, hey, what if I just kissed you right now? And it was awkward. And then they started talking about their relationship, and essentially it looked like Meri was pursuing Kody in her way, and Kody was saying, I don't know if this relationship exists anymore. And so I don't know what that means. It's furthering what he's already been saying. And it makes me wonder, but I'm not surprised by it. There were moments after the catfishing thing that I think were seeming opportunities for them to reconnect after being distant for a long time and after the betrayal. And I wondered if he was not fully aware or acknowledging of the pain of having his wife essentially cheat. We didn't, or I didn't anyway, see the receipts, the communications between Meri and the catfisher and the fictional man. But from context of what Mariah was saying, that the evidence of the communication between Meri and the catfisher was that Meri was in love with this guy and wanted to run away with him. So it wasn't just her being attacked. She was being attacked and she was being threatened. But prior to that happening, seemingly she was not only a willing participant, but she was desperate to be with this catfisher and to leave not only Kody, but everybody. And Mariah really resented that. So after that, they were kind of recovering a little bit. And Kody kept saying, even in one-on-one interviews, that he's just like, look, I'm not upset about it. She was in pain and we've been distant. And so it just grew out of that. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that's nice of him to frame it that way and to give her the benefit of the doubt. But either he's masking and he's burying his feelings, which isn't going to, result in good things because the feelings are going to be there and they're not going to be addressed. Or he had fallen out of love with Meri before or during that whole thing, All right, well, if you ever come across someone who is impersonating me, which doesn't seem to happen as much anymore, it happened a lot a few years ago, please email us because it's likely that I won't come across it. And if you comment on the impersonator, often the impersonator will be in the comment section. They'll use my name, they'll use my picture. they're usually trying to sell crypto. So just know that if there's someone that looks like me trying to sell you crypto, it's not me. I don't care about crypto. People can be into crypto if they want to. I have no interest in all that stuff. So please email us through the website, because that's the only way to really get a hold of us. If you really ever want to get a hold of me or my wife, Stacy, to get a hold of Psychology in Seattle, you have to go through the website. There's a form there. I'm pulling back more and more from all the social media platforms. I closed the Facebook official page because I don't know, Facebook is such a pain in the butt. Meta is such I wish I could show you how janky and unreliable and not user friendly the whole Meta business interface is. Especially when you have multiple business pages, because I used to have a page for my practice. I'm in a couple bands, and so you have to manage those. Anyway, it's pretty laborious and silly, and I'm even thinking about pulling back from Instagram because I don't know. I want to concentrate my work hours on things that really matter, and what really matter is content provision, not social media. Just, back in the day when I first started the podcast in 2008, I didn't want to be on social media. I just wanted to make content, and every year there would be a new platform. Oh, you got to be on Facebook. Oh, you got to be on Instagram. Oh, you got to be on LinkedIn. You got to be on TikTok, and you got to be on Twitter, and you got to be on X, and you got to be on, what was that one that was like rooms where people would just talk, and it was just, and I think it still exists, right? What's it called? Anyway, there's just various different things. And yeah, if I had several clones, I'd love to. I love that kind of stuff. I'm one of those people like that, in your friend circle or in your family that posts a lot on Facebook. I my personal Facebook page, I like to post stuff for my core friends and family members, because that's, it's the easiest way to share those kinds of pictures and videos and stuff. But in terms of just enjoyment and is it worth it? So anyway, don't DM me through any of those things if you're really trying to get hold of me. And so if you ever see an impersonator, please let us know, because any other venue is not likely to be seen by any of us. So there's that. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.